There's my, oh God, I got to stare with your shirt off? What is going on here? That's okay. You look good, man. You're buffing it out, huh? Ladies and gentlemen, we are live for this week's edition of Love and Muscle with your host, James Hergott.
Thank you, Bruce, for the amazing introduction. And just to let everybody know at home, we've known each other for like 10 years. I remember the first time I met you, I was doing a show called MMA Worldwide that was on HDNet that I was directing, and we shot a lot of that in your house, and we filmed you going to Venice Beach and working out and all this stuff. And actually, you knew me by name. I don't know if you remember this, but you knew me by name, but you didn't know what I looked like. So somebody had mentioned James Hergott. You're like, oh, James Hergott, I've heard of him, or whatever. And you're like, and I said, oh, I'm James Hergott. So that's the first time that we got formally introduced. Fast forward a couple years, I invited you to the George St-Pierre documentary that I executive produced, and you were very generous to come out to that with, we had Jose Aldo and Mike Goldberg and a bunch of UFC fighters came out, and you came out with Sam Roberts and watched it, and you actually did an introduction for me there, which I really appreciated. So it's been a long career, and it's been a while since I've seen you, so it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again, too. You're looking pretty ripped there compared to the premiere, that's for sure.
Well, back then I was doing more like jiu-jitsu stuff, which is great. But as you get older, I just turned 40. I started to get injured more. So the bodybuilding helps preserve me, but keep me in shape and stuff like that. So less injuries, and I enjoy it. So
as long as you're not cranking those barbell bench presses, bro, those are the worst things you can do for your shoulders. But I know it's big in the bodybuilding industry.
Yeah, no, I barely do any bench pressing at all. Unless you're powerlifting, there's not really any need to do that stuff, like it's more like focusing on really working the muscle and getting into like lifting a lot of weight and stuff like that. I don't even agree with that, because you can get it's about how much you exhaust the muscle. So,
which is all the more reason why you got to take that day break in between. And for me, if I do 100 or 200 push-ups a day, I'm affecting everything. I think it's one of the best all upper body workouts there is. Granted, I lift weights too. I go to the gym all the time. I'm rehabbing a blown ACL right now, so I'm in rehab 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, just for my lower half.
Yeah, I heard about that. And did that actually happen when you were performing? Was that correct, or is that?
Well, I was performing, but I wasn't performing in the octagon. I blew one ACL on my right knee at the big Toronto show with George St-Pierre and Jake Shields. When I was introducing George St-Pierre that night, I write about it in my book, It's Time, that it was a real turning point for me. I bunny hopped back. I'd already jumped. I'd already spun. I'd already done all my adrenaline stuff I do in the octagon, but I had a bad ankle. And when I bunny hopped back, my ankle wobbled, which caused my knee to explode. And, one of the easiest ways to blow somebody's knee is, and Boss Rutten once showed this in a video, if somebody's sitting with their legs crossed, just hold your hand down on their knee, slap their foot, their knee's going to fly. It's just amazing how the connective just blows everything up. So I had that fixed. Dr. Ep8, who did Tom Brady's knee and George St-Pierre's knee and works with the Rams and the Lakers, he's my doctor. He fixed that one. I got through all that rehab for a year. I injured this the night before UFC 200. There were 3 UFCs in a row. It was a fight night, a tough finale, and then UFC 200 in Vegas. On Wednesday night, the night before those 3 shows, the UFC hired me to go do a lip sync contest to perform. So I did Billy Idol's Rebel Yell. And at the beginning of the song, he jumps. And the stage that the Palazzo Hotel had was a piece of crap. It was segmented. And when I jumped, I didn't do a heavy jump, but I came down, and my leg gave way on one of the sections in the stage, and it buckled my knee, and my ACL blew right at the top of the song. And I fell about 50 seconds in, but I did finish the 3-minute rendition. I did the air guitar solo, and I jumped a little bit and all that, but I literally went for an MRI the next morning, right before the first show, and they said, your ACL's gone, you blew it, you tore your meniscus, your knee's shot. So I did 3 shows with one leg, because great saying in our business, the show must go on, right? Always must go on. So I'm not getting operated on. I'm rehabbing it. I'm 59 now. I'm not fighting. I'm not sparring. I'm not surfing big waves like I used to. but I'm still extremely athletic. So I'm training to strengthen all the muscles around it and avoid getting cut. And so far, good stuff. All good.
Well, you look good for your age, and gives me hope. So
I'm on this earth to give everybody hope. I just hope I got some too.
I think you do. And so with that doctor, did you get the stem cell thing done, or is that?
We're talking about that. I'm on my shoulders. I was wondering why I was having so much pain, and I've always been very fast-handed. I can hit anything I want to hit. I got great hand-eye coordination, sports, fighting, otherwise. It's always been a good asset that I've had. But I noticed pain when I was doing some striking workouts, and I went and got MRIs, and from all the surfing again and all the kickboxing I've done and martial arts since I was 12, this is what the doctor told me. I beat up my shoulders so much that now I'm bone on bone. I don't have cartilage in my shoulders anymore. So now what I have to do is I have to stay as strong as possible around my shoulders to keep everything together. So I did get stem cell and I did get PRP, the blood spinning from my shoulders. It was a nice cocktail. I will admit that any pain I had went away, but to get a stem cell and PRP injection into my knee is not going to grow back the ACL. It'll help maybe with what's going on in the meniscus and stuff, but it's not going to grow back the ACL. Once gone, it's like an old girlfriend. Once she's gone, she's gone. And most of the time, she doesn't come back.
Yeah. Well, I know they're always working on new innovations, but, I think keeping yourself healthy in the first place is the main thing. And you've done that, minus some of these things that you've dealt with. And it actually leads into my first question, because we're going to be handling relationship questions and stuff like that. But I actually got a question that somebody sent in for you, which I thought was pretty compelling. And, I'm not sure if the public out there knows it, but you managed, your brother's career and his famous catchphrase, which I can't even say, or you'll probably sue me. But
that's okay. I'll let you say it with me on the show. It's okay.
So well, you managed the whole let's get ready to rumble and video games, and I mean there was worldwide just everything you could name off of that. And so you're a very gifted businessman as well, and handling that even before you got into managing Scott Ferozzo and then getting into the UFC and all that stuff. So I got a question that somebody sent in where they asked, they think your career has eclipsed your brother's. Now, I guess that's up for debate, and you can chime in on that, but certainly boxing has declined and MMA's been on the meteoric rise. Do you feel that now you've kind of overshadowed your brother at this point with things, or, do you look at it that way? Is it a challenge for you and your relationship with him, or anything like that? And also, is that anything that you ever really expected to happen for you're announcing when you first started in the early days of the UFC, for it to get so big and for your brand to get so big?
Well, it's an interesting question. And to preface it, my brother and I met, as you know, James, we met later in life. I was like 28 years old when I was watching TV, and out came this debonair James Bond looking guy saying, let's get ready to rumble. And Tyson was putting the world on fire back in like 1987, 88. And a lot of great fighters, Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. And it was just every night, Saturday night, Tuesday night fights, water cooler conversation on Monday. Boxing was the shit. Boxing was everything. It still is for a lot of people. But the reality is, when I was watching TV, this man came out and on the screen it said Michael Buffer. And I have had my own company since I was 19. I've owned a number of telemarketing companies. And before the internet, the natural thing was to look in the phone book and see if your name was in Madison, Wisconsin, I never saw the name Buffer in a phone book, and long story cut short, that man on the TV I was looking at, after people coming up to me for about a year after that and saying, is that your brother, that guy that does Let's Get Ready to Rumble? Because he was becoming really huge, as boxing was huge. And I said, no, my brother's Brian. My dad admitted to me after I went to him with the same question that he thought that was my brother. He never told me he was married briefly during World War II. It was a marriage that lasted 9 months. He went overseas, came back, a son was born. One of those classic stories. And the last time he saw Michael was when he was 2.5. So when Michael was in LA doing a fight, I had my dad call the venue, and Michael called him back, and they got together for lunch. Lo and behold, it was his son. And we met, and then I sold 2 very successful businesses I had a beach house, living the life of Riley, making a lot of money, and that's all great. I mean, I've always been able to make good money. It's, I've had a knack for that no matter what I do, but thank God. Along with failures in between. You don't know what it's like to be successful until you know what it's like to fail. It's just the nature of life. But I quit my 2 companies, and the fact that I sold them, quit with the money I had in the bank, took over management of his career, became his partner, trademarked those famous 5 words because I wanted to put that phrase on the tip of American culture, and started the freight train, which is still running, named Michael Buffer and Let's Get Ready to Rumble, and loyally and lovingly been his partner and brother, and we've gotten along great, and we still get along great. But I wanted to do something back then. I wanted to be an announcer, and I wanted to announce boxing. I thought travel the world, wear great clothes, tuxedos, meet beautiful women. It's like, my gosh, it was like the same thing people might think about when they see me and or Michael still doing, our work. And it's true. You do travel the world. It's like being James Bond, not having to kill anybody. You put a tuxedo in a bag. I go to a city, get a great restaurant, find a wonderful casino and a gym to work out in. And, if a pretty girl walks across my way, I'm still single. So, I love to say hello too. So enjoy your life to the fullest. So everything was going along great, but we agreed I would not announce boxing. It was not the thing to do because it would have been a confliction of interest. So don't worry, something else will come along. The UFC came along, and I put Michael in the UFC first. I had him do UFC 6, 7, and Ultimate because my job as his manager and partner was to put him in every area of sports and entertainment that was hot, and that was a hot upcomer. I knew back then when I saw the UFC, it was going to be the biggest thing in fighting. But it was a spectacle back then. It wasn't the sport that it is today, the mainstream sport as it's entering and becoming and is today. So I got him in. I had to pull him out because we had a confliction of interest with WCW Wrestling, who we had a huge contract with. They weren't happy he was doing UFC, saying if it's not in the octagon, it's not real. And then over the course of a year and a half, it took me to convince the owners of the UFC that they needed me in the octagon. I told them I could help them build the brand. I had media contacts. I could be more than just an announcer, but in order to help build the brand and build the sport of mixed martial arts, which it wasn't even called back then, till years later, I needed to grow with them as the announcer. And I did. I managed the fighters. You mentioned Scott the Pitbull Ferrazzo down there. I did UFC 8 in Puerto Rico. They called me back for UFC 10. They hired somebody else to announce after that. I didn't have the job. And then they asked me to co-star on Friends, the popular comedy TV show, in a second season in this show they did called The Ultimate Fighting Champion with Jon Favreau and Tank Abbott and John McCarthy. So with that being said, I called the owner and I said, yeah, I'll accept. I'll co-star as myself, but you need to meet me on the set. We need to talk. And I saw him that day of rehearsal on a Tuesday. I said, Robert Meyer was his name. I said, basically, look, I feel like a girl waiting for a date to the prom. I've flown to New York. I've taken you out. I've done the shows you've asked me to do. I'm telling you need to hire me. You're not hiring me. You're hiring somebody else. He's nervous in the service. He's screwing up names, got a good voice, but it's not what you need. You need me to do this. And one of the things in life as an entrepreneur is if you want something, you got to ask for it. You got to go for it. It was the best poker hand I ever played. And we agreed that I would do it. I did it for short money in the beginning. I lost money traveling, something I'm sure you're very well aware of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, James. And I knew back then that boxing, as huge as it was, it's not that it was going to surpass boxing. The mistake people make is they compare the two. Boxing and mixed martial arts, or what people know as UFC in most cases, are apples and oranges. They're fighting sports. They're completely different. They need to be respected as different. And I've always treated it that way. I love my work in the world of boxing for almost 30 years now. I love my work in the octagon, which is now almost 21 years. As of February, I'll be announcing in the octagon. Michael in boxing, Michael's still huge. He's a legend. He's an icon. He'll work in Europe. He'll work everywhere. He gets paid huge money for what he does. I still manage him with 24/7 tender loving care. But in this country, the 18 to 34-year-olds, find one person, ask 10 and find one that can name the welterweight boxing champion of the world. Ask them who the heavyweight champion is, okay? It's gone from 9 titles to over 50 titles, or alphabet titles, as we call them, with all respect to boxers, because it's an incredible sport, all respect in the world. But the hearts and minds of the 18 to 34-year-olds are into the mixed martial arts. They're into the UFC. Fox did a report a couple of years ago that 18 to 34-year-old males, 75% plus, are fans of the UFC. That's crazy. I mean, how would you like to have a business where 75% of the people want your product? That's nuts. And women are very close to that. So, yes, I think that MMA has surpassed. I think the biggest problem boxing has is the promoters don't work together and there's no personalities driving the sport. Triple G is very exciting. outside of that, I mean, let's face it, Mayweather Pacquiao was more of a debacle than a successful, venture. And it kind of turned off a lot of people to buying boxing pay-per-views. The hype didn't meet the fight. Where Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, the hype met the fight, right? 1.9 million buys, what's going to happen next? And then we have the big one in Madison Square Garden coming up. That Madison Square Garden is the home to the fighting sports. It's historically one of the greatest arenas, but the UFC 205 that's going to be there, when they first put them on pre-sale, if I have my statistics correct, sold out in 3 hours. The first day of actual sales tickets, there were no tickets to sell to the public. They were gone already. It's going to be awesome. And that's the pinnacle for me and the UFC as where we've gone in the last 20-some years. Madison Square Garden, the United States, that's nothing better than that, man. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be huge, and the sad part is how long it took to get into New York, of course. And actually, when I was pitching the George St-Pierre film, we have the Toronto Film Festival up here, which is one of the biggest festivals next to cons, right? And they're supposed to really highlight Canadian culture. And at the time, George St-Pierre had been voted 3 years in a row as the Canadian Athlete of the Year. So you have these sort of like artsy types and stuff that, controlled the Toronto Film Festival, at least at that time, around 2010. And I submitted the movie, and I was talking to the programmers, and I said, this is, they were debating about putting the film in, and the guy's like, I've never heard of this stuff. And I said, this is like the #1 athlete in Canada right now. And just because you haven't heard of them, like just because it doesn't fit your artistic view of things, this is what the common man is watching down at the bar on a local night, which to me is more artistic and cultural than putting something in that's like, a gay Eskimo or something, or whatever people consider artistic. And it was actually turned down for the Toronto Film Festival. And of course, the movie outsold any of the films that they highlighted. But it's kind of a sad thing because, at least I was somebody that I saw how big it was going to become and things like that. But it took a long time really for mainstream and certain areas of culture to even really catch on to it. And it is kind of a sad thing that, documenting it, looking back, that, here's an opportunity for a documentary about the biggest, athlete within Canada, and you have the film festival that's supposed to support Canadian culture, and they won't even put it in because they don't even know about what the sport is.
The biggest problem in the growth of this sport in this country, and the biggest problem in really anything in life, is that for most people, if not all, perception is reality. And, you had George, let's face it, aside from Wayne Gretzky, is probably the most famous Canadian athlete, I would think, to come along in 20 years. Am I wrong or am I right?
Absolutely. And for younger people, he would be bigger than Wayne Gretzky because
we're dealing with new generations all the time. That's why Hollywood makes sequels. So it's like, either they're in the know or they're not in the know, but so much of this is an educational process that needs to go out. It's just got to be done correctly. And that's no different than what we went through here in the United States from 1993 when it first came on the scene, to always having to explain it and people thinking we were, getting off bar stools, and just not the amazingly skilled supermen and superwomen that fight in the octagon. It's an evolutionary process. Life is an evolutionary process. You go through it, I go through it. In my respect to the UFC and the work I do, I'm going through an approximate 21-year evolutionary process, whether it be my voice maturing where it's gotten now, my performance maturing on my personal little niche, or just the overall picture of all that's going on with the UFC. And it's just you make wrongs rights, and you make rights better. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, and then I guess the thing is, there builds up so much demand that when it finally does come to New York or whatever the situation is, it blows up. And we had the same thing in Toronto, because as you know, it was at first banned in Canada, and then when it was allowed, to go to Toronto, well, it was allowed in Montreal, but when it did come to Toronto, it was a huge thing for the first show, which unfortunately you got injured doing, but the story there. So
I've got this jinx when it comes to big shows, because that was the biggest show yet in the UFC, and I blew my knee, severed my ACL, as I was telling you. Then we had UFC 200, and I blew my knee again 3 nights before that show. Now we've got Madison Square Garden 205 UFC coming up. I think I'm just going to hide in my room until the show starts. I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to cross the street. I just want to get in the show.
Don't do that. We definitely need you there. I mean, it's going to be a landmark event, but just we want you to stay healthy, of course. So
I will. Don't worry. I will.
Maybe no. I don't know what would be the next thing after the 360 or whatever. I don't even want to think about that. But
let me say goodbye. This is my boy. This is my godson. This is Henry. Say hi, James.
Hi.
James.
Hello. 11.
You know who he trains with? He trains with Master Dan Inosanto, Bruce Lee's ex-partner. That's who trains him. So he's learning his martial arts and that. He's taking a little break now for soccer, but he just came in because he's going to say goodbye. Let me say goodbye to him.
No problem.
Have a good night, Henry.
So he's in the old jet. Is it Jet Kune-Do? Is that how you say it?
Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go into our first question because it kind of ties in with what you were saying about being an entrepreneur and taking risks. So I had somebody specifically write in for you, and their issue is they're having problems approaching a girl that they have a crush on and managing their anxiety. So you're somebody that you fought in the ring in terms of kickboxing, you performed in terms of massive crowds, and that energy and all of that, and taking risks as an entrepreneur. So what do you say to a young guy that is afraid to even approach a girl, and how to kind of manage those butterflies?
The thing is, tough guy. Speaking of myself, you're always a little nervous before every fight. Want to ask a girl out, there's a lot of girls there. Yeah, you're a little nervous going up, but the bottom line is that I always tell people, yes, it's okay to feel a little trepidation, a little nervous. That's just normal. But the thing that breaks the ice, like in a fight, is when you get hit for the first time or when you throw your first punch, once you get started. And then all goes away. So I'm not saying, punch the girl you want to go out with. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving an analogy in another respect, maybe not the best one. But pickup lines, okay, those are pickup lines and they're fine. Hey, you have a nice body. You mind if you hold it against me or whatever? I mean, those things don't work, okay? The greatest way to say hi to a girl, the greatest way to break the ice, the first key thing is, in my opinion, I talk about this on my Sex and Relationship show on my It's Time podcast. If you have not made eye contact from across the room, 10 feet away, whatever, if she has not made a solid eye contact with you, it's going to be that's the first sign that there's interest. If she's obviously seen you but not made eye contact, there's probably not much interest there. But the thing is that there's nothing better than walking up and simply saying, hi, my name's Bruce. How are you? Right? It's really the easiest thing there is, and wait for the response. And if they give you a nice, endearing response, if they show interest, hi, how are you? And great, I'd love to buy you a drink. Love to buy you a drink, talk to you. And if they say no, then walk away. But it's like a salesman. Salesmen have to get 9 yeses or 10 yes or 10 no's to get a yes, right? It's a numbers game out there. And you don't want to be that bar dick that just walks around hitting on every girl in the place. I mean, be selective. Take your time. It's like a poker game. When you sit down at the table, sit back and watch all the players and get a feel for them and then make your move. So a little patience.
Well, I would also say that as I got older, I realized that when girls were interested, if they have any brains, they kind of have a way of letting you know. So usually if you think if you have a huge amount of fear, it's because you subconsciously know that person's not interested. Because the truth is, like, if a girl's interested and she's not too shy herself, she can even, like you said, with a look or saying hello or whatever, give you the green light to move forward, and then that should give you some confidence. And then, I think, it's very intoxicating to a woman if you do have the confidence to approach them or to, just have the balls to be able to talk to them and not fear things. And even if you feel it inside, just, try and hide it. And one of the things I found with UFC fighters or performers in any kind of discipline is they can kind of everybody feels those butterflies, but they can harness it and kind of use it as a launching pad. So it's almost like that gives them a tunnel vision focus that they can use. So maybe just utilize those nerves to kind of push yourself forward to take that chance. Because, I mean, we all run out of time anyway. So, there's there's no risk in doing and attempting. I mean, sure, you might get shot down, but so what?
No, but you know what the thing is life is about rejection in many different areas, whether it's in business and private life and sports, you name it. And if you can't handle rejection and take it constructively as to how can I better myself, you're going to be a slower learner. You're going to have a slower evolutionary process to success. And success is not always about being the richest guy or going out with the most girls or closing ratio either way. You know, it's all about just doing it well, doing your best, and having confidence. And two things that girls love, and they know. First off, a girl is going to know within 5-10 seconds if she's even interested in sleeping with you, much less kissing you. Okay, they know that like this, right? But they love confidence and they love sense of humor, right? And people say, well, do you have game? That is game. Confidence and sense of humor, conversation, all good stuff. You know, and the other thing is when you talk, the conversation is not about you. It's not, I drive this, I do this, I live here, I go there. Make it about her. Women love to talk and they love a great listener, right? If you can listen well, you can make them laugh, you can smile with confidence, and you got a few bucks in your pocket to pay for the drinks that you offered to pay for her, you'll be fine.
Great tips, Bruce. Listen to Bruce on this. So this question, this is an interesting one. I have fantasies of my wife being with another man. We have talked about trying a threesome. We have a mutual friend who's willing to do this. Do you think it would hurt our relationship, or should I follow my fantasy? William in Mississippi. And I'll just interject before you say anything, Bruce. I just want to tell you a quick story. I knew of a very similar situation to this, and the guy was totally into it, and the couple had it all set up. And so this friend of theirs, who's a guy, is going to start making out with his wife. And they're in the hotel room, and the husband's sitting in the chair watching and all this stuff. And they start kissing and all this. And then it gets to the point of this guy is about to have sex with his wife. And they had fantasized about this. It had all been talked out. And there was something primal. And the moment that this guy went to stick his penis in her, this husband stood up from his chair. It wasn't even like a thought. It was just a reaction. And he walked over, punched this guy, and knocked him out. And it was just...
So they were swingers? They brought another couple in?
Well, they were going to attempt it for the first time. And so...
That's not a threesome. That's a foursome. Or was it a two guys and the wife?
No, it was... this guy was going to watch his friend get with his wife. And then...
Big mistake. Big mistake.
Right.
First off, the biggest mistake of the whole thing is that they're married. Okay, now when you're married... Okay, if you were to ask me this question, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, are you boyfriend and girlfriend, or are you married, right? The fact that they're married, I would say no. The answer to William, Mississippi is no, don't do it because you're married. If you're married, you have to select one of two ways, either to live a healthy, hopeful sexual relationship between the two of you, or to call yourself swingers and start living a swinger lifestyle, okay, if that's your choice. If your boyfriend and because if you bring another girl in the bedroom, in this case another man, you're just asking for problems. And especially if it's a friend, like this one he's talking about a mutual friend, you're really asking for problems. When people call me on my show or write me about the threesome effect, I answer like this. Again, are you married? Yes? No, don't do it. I have nothing left to say. Just don't do it. It's not good for your marriage, okay? If you're boyfriend and girlfriend and you're still going through your experimental stage, started off with the fantasies like your friend was doing, fantasize about the other woman being in the room with you and your girl and all that kind of stuff. Do not bring in a friend that you know, because that's like should be like a one-night stand situation where you have that really thrilling night. Once the act is over, it's over. The first threesome I ever had with my serious girlfriend, we had a great time. But then the girl who was invited to be with us, that we all had a great time with, and we were on vacation, which is where I think it really should happen, preferably. I kissed her. After it was all over, I started kissing her. Pissed off my girlfriend like there was no tomorrow, put a bad end to the evening. That was really incredible. Had to get through that little period because there's jealousy involved, and no matter what, your girlfriend's your girlfriend. In this case, your wife is your wife. There's certain rules when it comes to these things, and threesomes, in the fact of where it's you, your girlfriend, and another woman, it's not about you. It's not about Mr. Winky. It's all about her, right? And in order to have a proper threesome and do it properly, you need to be a good director or an excellent director. And trust me, the director will be able to get into the scene and be able to play out his scene at some time and make it all about your lady and make it all about the lady you're with. And I guarantee you'll have a really great time. It's got to be handled right.
Yeah, and the thing is though, Bruce, like you've been around, you're, kind of a debonair character and stuff like that. And I've got to imagine for a lot of people, it might sound good, but then in reality, like just the idea that your wife is going to make maybe a noise that she hasn't made with you or react a different way or whatever, or I don't know, man. I think it's be hard for a lot of people's egos to handle. So I think it's a big...
It's not for everybody, James. If everybody was having threesomes, this world would be pretty damn screwed up. But it can be done. It can be done in a very fun way. But if you make a habit of it, then you're never going to have a serious relationship. You have to accept, again, are you a swinger or are you trying to really do something right? I think it's a great experience. I think every guy should actually have the experience. It's something every guy fantasizes about. And given the right scenario, have a blast, man. Enjoy yourself. We're all adults here. Consenting.
All right, there you go. So that brings us to our next question. My boyfriend and I have been fighting a lot lately. He doesn't take out the trash. He doesn't do shit. I've cut him off from sex. I told him if he doesn't do the chores, no sex. Now he's threatening to cheat. I want to show him this video. Please tell him what an asshole he is and what's up. Chili.
Well, relationships are 50-50 in my opinion. You're supposed to help out each other. Their weaknesses are your strengths. Their strengths are your strengths are their weaknesses, however the scenario goes. In this case, from what I'm seeing here in this question and hearing is they're fighting a lot lately because he doesn't take out the trash. There's a lot more to it than just not taking out the trash. The doesn't do shit, as she writes in her note to you. That's really what it is. This guy's probably, my guesstimate, is lazy. As a result of being lazy, he's probably not turning her on anymore. It's very easy for her to cut him off from sex. So if he really cares about his lady and she's made it clear what would help in their relationship, he's obviously not participating as a partner in this relationship. It goes beyond just he's lying on the couch. He probably doesn't participate in a lot of things. My guess is he probably doesn't even take her out on a date night, to dinner. He's probably just lazy. It's let's lay around the house. Let's watch TV. You do the cooking. Let's go where it's free. He's probably not taking that extra step. I mean, it's one thing. Remember, in relationships, you better be this excited up here when you first meet because it's a declining return. And unless you work on building that declining return to prevent it from declining and also to help build it up again, your relationship is not going to last that long. You're going to be one of the large percentages of relationships that are in relationships that are just plain not happy. Relationships take work, man. It's like a business. And if she gives, you need to give too. Just don't be the taker. If you're the taker, I think she should dump him. Go on to another guy.
And I'm going to add to this that cutting off a man from sex is never a good, well, anybody from sex is never a good idea, because it's a fallacy to believe that the person you cut off from sex is going to go without. This is where cheating can become an easy excuse for people. And I use kind of the expression, it's crude, but you're not going to stop the dog from drinking by taking away the water dish. He's just going to go drink out of the toilet. So if you cut a man off from sex to teach him a lesson, I think he's probably going to go get it elsewhere. So I don't think
don't kid yourself. The woman might go get it elsewhere too. It's not all about the guy being horny. Women are just as horny as we are. And they think about sex just as much, if not maybe a little bit less than we do. So don't ever kid yourself. Well, I know you don't, but the person that wrote this in, they've got to realize what they're dealing with here is a very sensitive, I'm sorry I cut you off, but they're dealing with a very sensitive situation. And communication is key. If she's going to cut him off from sex, then they should sit and talk this all out. Is he being romantic? Is he romancing his girlfriend? Is he laying down rose petals leading to the bathtub? I doubt this guy is. Is he cooking her dinner? Is he massaging her? Or does he just expect her to service him all the time? That's dude, you're setting yourself up for failure if that's your attitude. Don't even get involved. Just go date and have one-offs.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely have to talk these things out and not just passive aggressively do things. I mean, that's kind of immature to me. Express yourself, let the person know how you feel about things, and go from there. So last question, and because I know you're on a time constraint, unless
That's okay.
unless you want any more after that. But this is the last one I've scheduled for you. So this is, I think this question's a troll question, but we'll answer it anyway. I got an STD. I didn't cheat on my lady, but she says I must have gotten it at the gym because she's been faithful. Have you ever heard of this? Ray in Huntington Beach. So Ray's just down the road from you here, and no, he's in Huntington Beach. And look, I don't know. If you get an STD from a partner and you're not having sex, obviously there's something going on there. But I'll let you handle this, Bruce.
Well, he said I got an STD, the burning kind, which means that, usually that represents gonorrhea or syphilis, the old two standards, which can, both, thank God, go away with a pill or a shot or whatever they're giving you these days. I've never had either. I'm not, luckily, knock on wood, never been an STD guy. Thank God. I like to keep that record clean. But as far as he didn't cheat on her, he could also have what's called urethritis. Okay. And a lot of the doctors, when we go to them, like I went one time when I was a kid because I had, a burning kind, right? It wasn't an STD. It was a urethritis, which is it's a urinary infection, which is very common in women, and it can happen in men from eating spicy foods and various other things. So, you have to take a pill to get rid of it, but it's not an STD. So if this guy has not checked to see what STD he has received, and he's just worried because he's having the burning, give your girl a break first, go to the doctor and see if you just don't have regular urethritis. Okay, that's my first suggestion. If he didn't cheat on her and she didn't cheat on him, he could be carrying something he's not aware of, like maybe chlamydia, and he gave her chlamydia, and maybe he's having a reaction. Again, I'm not a doctor. I can't go too much further than that. As far as gotten at the gym, how do you get an STD at the gym unless you sit on a guy get up with herpes sores and you sit down within seconds after he or she got up from the toilet, and maybe, God forbid, you get that. But, you need to constantly sanitize your hands at the gym. Staph infection is very common at the gym, but not the passing of STDs to my knowledge. I don't think you can get AIDS from the same bench machine, So I think he needs to search this out a little more. But again, if he hasn't been diagnosed for what he thinks he has, which he claims is an STD, go get diagnosed first and then deal with your lady on it. But honestly, if he does have an STD, somebody's not telling the truth here.
Yes, and people unfortunately do lie. I've heard of situations where, even pregnancy, somebody gets pregnant and they say, well, it was you, but it wasn't really you. I mean, unfortunately in relationships, there's some pretty sick lies that can be told, and maybe people are just afraid to tell the truth. They're afraid of the consequences.
Can I help with that? Okay, here's the thing. If you lie once to me in a relationship, I'm gone. If you lie to me in business, I'm gone. Maybe I'll give you a chance to make it up, but it's like a man that slaps a girl and, he'll never slap me again. No, he's going to punch you right between the eyes and break your nose. It's going to graduate. Lies will graduate into more lies, and if that's the way people like to get through life, you shouldn't even be involved with them. There's such a thing as dating somebody where it's fun to play with, not to stay with, okay? If you're going to stay with somebody, make sure you're with an honest one, a good one, and if you're with a guy and it's a girl, make sure she's got a great relationship with her father. If you're a girl and with this guy, it would be nice that he has a great relationship with his mom, because then male and female both will treat you better. The relationship will go better. If there's problematic situations with the girl to her father or the son to her mother, you might not be treated the way you want to be treated. This happens too. You should look at all areas of before you commit yourself. People fall into commitments so easily these days. I'm not a very easily committed person, but I like going out with somebody. And then when I do commit myself, I don't fool around at all. Nothing. But also on the STD note, STDs amongst the 18 to 34-year-olds, or especially amongst 18 to 25, is higher than ever. It's higher than ever now in the United States.
That's insane. I guess people aren't using protection, and
put a helmet on that soldier, baby.
I know, it's crazy, and it's not even just about your health, but whatever you're passing on. I mean, you obviously know about HPV and all these other things. You could be a carrier of something and pass it on and not even know it, and yeah, it's scary world out there. So we're going to wrap things up. I just wanted to ask you about if you've been following the World Series of Poker. I know you're a huge poker buff, and if you had any comments on Will's Table Talk, that's been kind of a big thing this year.
I just watched that video last night. The English guy?
Yeah. And he's been criticized, that he was pulled aside and stuff like that because they said he was messing with the other players and stuff. I mean, personally, I guess it takes up a lot of time. It's entertaining to watch, and I think it's part of the psychological game. But you're like you're very experienced in poker, much more than I am. So I just wanted to get your take on it.
It's the kind of thing you're playing with a player like that, and he'll just drive you nuts. Like the one hand I watched on video last night when he lost all his chips.
Yeah,
it got taken off the table by the guy where he had kings and the other guy had aces. It's taking up way too much time, and basically that's why you basically call the clock. I mean, if it gets to you, you can't get up and hit the guy. You don't want to get into a screaming match because you want to keep your mental attitude strong when you're at the poker table, especially when you're down to 17 people in the World Series of Poker and first prize is $10 million. He's doing that to throw everybody off their game, but it was a little too much. I don't think he was necessarily disrespecting the guy. I think it was more he was just getting under his nails and just driving him nuts, like nails on a chalkboard. But he paid the price. He lost all his chips. He's gone. He's history. Life goes on.
Well, I'll give him one out on this, which is he's an attorney by trade. So
yeah,
I think that.
Wait, he was in the tournament. What?
Well, he's an attorney. That's his career.
Oh, well, right there. Come on, that's it. Guy's litigating at the poker table. I mean, please, the long wind has got to stop. And there's two things you do in life when it comes to a bully. And they start talk. I come from the school. I don't talk. If we're going to throw down, let's just throw. Okay, I got no time to talk. You've insulted me. You're gonna come at me. I was taught punch the bully right between the eyes. It's on. Let's end this thing. In poker, just play your hand, right? Maybe a couple little things to try and get a read, but not on and on and on. But if he's affecting people, then he's winning. So he was getting the results that he wanted. But he's gone. He lost all his chips, and so be it.
Yeah, it's so true, Bruce. Even in business, I had, it's like you said, with fights. A lot of people that haven't been in fights, they threaten fights a lot. I've noticed that because they don't really understand all the consequences. And I've noticed the same thing in terms of litigation. I mean, obviously representing a brand like, Let's Get Ready to Rumble and your own brand, you've had to do litigation. And I've ran into people where they threaten to sue you. And of course, being an entrepreneur, I've been in lawsuits before, so it doesn't really scare me. So but I have a healthy fear of I know what it really takes. So when somebody starts casually throwing that around, it's like somebody at a bar, saying, I'm going to kick your ass. It's kind of like, okay, well, here's my address, serve me. And I've actually had people where I'm like, okay, here's my address, serve me. And they're like, no, you don't understand, I'm going to sue you. And I'm like, no, I understand, here's my address. And it's like, they're trying to bluff you or make you afraid or whatever, and it's like, I don't have time for that. Like, if you're going to sue me, just sue me. But usually people that spend a lot of time talking like that, they never actually intend to follow through.
Here's a bufferism for you. I put a lot of bufferisms in my book. It's real simple, and a number of these comes from my dad. Those that talk don't do, and those that do don't talk, okay? So, lawsuits, people think, oh, I'll sue them, great. Watch the mental duress you go through for the months you're involved in that lawsuit. Watch the mental duress you go through every time you write a check to your attorney, who wins in the game? The attorneys win. Avoid lawsuits at all costs. I've litigated, and I just got done litigating earlier today. But in protecting my trademarks, I avoid lawsuits at all time. I do cease and desist letter to try and get the thing solved, closed. Money has to change hands, fine. No lawsuit. If I have to sue, I will. But I don't want to, and I don't want to be sued. I hate lawsuits. And I hate dealing with attorneys. I happen to have one who's one of my good friends, but outside of that, I don't really want to walk into a bar and celebrate the next 3 hours with the attorneys of Los Angeles,
Well, like I said, the people that throw things around casually, they have never actually been through the experience. It's like somebody talking about like they're going to get into a fight and they've never been on the receiving end of a punch. You know what I mean? So
you never know who you are till you get punched in the face, James. You never know who you are.
It's true. And people in terms of like litigation and stuff, like, it is extremely stressful. And I don't have the exact quote, but Abraham Lincoln has a great quote about, he says something to the effect of the litigation should be avoided at all costs because of the the stress, the time, the money, and everything else, that, you know, it's much better to settle things. And, you know, people may take that as weakness when you try to sell it, and it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, you think that this is going to be like Judge Judy, where this is going to get settled in a night, and you don't realize this is the next 3 years of our life where we're going to be spending a lot of money. And then who knows, like, you could be suing me or vice versa, and we could go broke and you could end up with nothing. I had an attorney one time tell me that he had a whole shelf full of judgments, you know, that he'd sell me for $1, right? So you could even spend 3 years and $150,000 or more on a lawsuit and end up with nothing. So
yeah, you'll end up with nothing, but you'll end up with a lot of nights of lost sleep. You'll end up with a lot of duress. You'll end up with a lot of stress. You'll end up being out in the most pleasurable situations you can possibly imagine, maybe a threesome with your girlfriend and the girl you dream of. And in the back of the line, you know that there's a lawsuit happening and your thing doesn't work. I'm telling you, it's not the best choice in life. Avoid lawsuits at all costs. If you get into it, then deal with it the way you have to deal with it.
Yeah, I agree. And the same thing with like family court, you know, people getting into family court situations and stuff like that, custody battles, all that stuff. It happens way too much. And the lawyers are the ones that win on all that stuff, man. It tears the families apart. It's a real sad situation. So I think that's a good place to end things. And, you know, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your book, and, you know, you got a special offer that you're going to tell everybody about in terms of brucebuffer.com.
Well, my Random House published my, under their Crown label, published my biography titled It's Time. It's sold out in the stores, but on Amazon, you can still buy the Kindle version. And there are books being sold on Amazon too, but I'm really proud of the book. It's a story of my life. It's a family story about my mom, my dad, my family, my finding my brother, my work in the UFC. It's a motivating book. I put my heart on the table. I even have a chapter in there to all the girls I've loved before. You know, I kind of shortened it a little bit and changed a few of the names, but it's in there. But it's a tell-all, and I got 5-star ratings by the New York Times and Sports Illustrated, and I'm really, really proud of it. On my site, which is brucebuffer.com, you can go there to hear my podcast, which is on SoundCloud and iTunes. And, of course, it's called It's Time. Branding, baby. Got a brand. Always keep the same things the same with the brand. And then also on my site, too, for the UFC fans, I've been paid really a lot of money to do championship introductions for fans and videos of me doing championship introductions. I do weddings. I do birth of babies. I do all this kind of stuff. So you can either write in what your personalized requested intro is, and you'll be quoted a fee by my office. But to make it easy, where I normally charge $300 to $500 for a championship intro, I have a special button where it says click here to order your personalized championship intro at brucebuffer.com. And there's an order form, and you fill out the form with the pertinent information. It's $99. You hit a button. It goes through PayPal. We get the order form in my office. When I get back from my trip, within 2 weeks, you'll have a audio file sent to you that will be introducing you just as if you were a champion, you know, walking into the cage, or a champion of life. And I've been loving doing this. I put this up about 2 weeks ago, and orders are just flying in all day long. It's really incredible. So I take 2 days out of the week, block out a couple hours each day, and just let them go, let them fly, you know, working during the week, working during the weekends. But it gives me a lot of pleasure when the fans write back on, you know, how excited they are, and whether it was their wedding or the championship intro, that means the world to me. I'll always cash the paycheck, James. Don't get me wrong, but I'm about much more than the paycheck. I enjoy my life, and I enjoy giving back as much as I can. And I also give a portion of proceeds to charity, my favorite military and animal charities.
That's incredible. And yeah, I was in Iraq for an MMA thing, so I really support the troops. And I was just curious, you doing these announcements, what's kind of like the number one usage for them, do you think?
The number one thing, well, actually weddings has been big, but like, here's a form. So I'll mock one for you. They send it in, they go blue corner, red corner, fighting style, their record, height and weight, where they fight out of, a title and a nickname. Okay. So let's do this real quick. What's your fighting style, James? Pick one.
Jet Kundo.
Jeet Kune Do.
Yes.
And how tall? How much you weigh?
I am currently 180 pounds, 5'9".
And your professional record, let's make you undefeated, 10-0. Where are you from?
We'll say Toronto, Canada.
Okay. All right. And any title?
Oh, bodybuilding champion of the world.
Okay, fine. Nickname?
I'll let you pick it. I can't. You can't come up with your own nickname.
I got it. Okay, so then that's about what it took. Then you press the button, you pay for it through PayPal. I get the thing. So this is how I would do it. And now, introducing the champion fighting out of the red corner. This man is a Jeet Kune Do specialist. He stands 5 feet 9 inches tall, weighing in at 180 pounds, holding a professional record undefeated with 10 wins and no losses. Fighting out of Toronto, Canada, he is the bodybuilding champion of the world, presenting James Hurricane Hergott. That's the $99 audio.
I love it, man. And how on earth do you keep the lungs healthy?
You know what? I don't abuse myself. I've been a surfer all my life. I got a good set of lungs and used to be able to hold my breath underwater for almost 3 minutes when I was a kid. What can I say? It's what I love to do. And like anything else, when I started announcing 21 years ago, it was a lot different than the way I sound today.
Yeah.
And your throat, everything becomes a muscle, and you fine tune it and you take care of it. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, you become great at it. I mean, I think a lot of people compared you at first to your brother, and of course your brother had all these years of experience, and but now you've really grown into your own, and I mean 20 years is a long time, and developed your own voice and your own style, and yeah, it's an incredible thing. And before we get going, I just want to give a shout out to is it your assistant, Kristen? I first met her like in probably 2009, so you obviously have loyalty not only if you're in a relationship, but to the people around you, because she's somebody that's been in your life a long time, and she's always been very nice to me, and even sometimes on social media she'll like my posts and things like that. And I'll send her a message on your birthday and I'll say I wish Bruce a happy birthday, and she's very always gets back to me and stuff like that. So she's a really good girl. So obviously you get the spotlight and stuff like that, but I'd like to say something about Kristen, just because she may not always get that kind of attention.
That's the mark of what a cool guy you are, James, because she's my right arm. She's actually my ex-girlfriend from 20 years ago, and we stayed friends. We only got together. We were in love, but we stayed together for 6 or 8 months, and then I realized I couldn't be faithful. And like I told you earlier, I don't BS anybody. I tell the truth. So we stayed friends after that. We dated a little bit after that. Then 18 years ago, she was working for the assistant to Barry Diller, who started Fox, one of the biggest, businessmen around. And she wasn't liking her job, and we were still talking, and it was just Michael and me. I did everything on my own, and I decided to bring her in, and she first became my assistant. Now she's vice president of my companies. I consider her my partner. She's the woman I should have married, but I didn't, and now we have a brother-sister relationship. She married a great guy, and that young man that was here earlier saying goodbye to me is her son. And when Henry was born, along with his brother Rupert, for the first 2+ years of their lives, we're working in my home office here by the beach, right? So it's a great office. We're very productive. We do a lot of business out of here, but her kids had to come to the office, and I'm only home on the weekdays. So I actually was with them for 30, 40 hours a week, changing diapers, feeding them, teaching them, whatever the case. I was a second dad, and I've never been married. I've almost been divorced twice, but I've never been married. So I am so lucky to have this woman in my life who is everything to me, aside from my mom, the most incredible woman I know. Respectfully, she's married. He's a great guy. Chris, we're all one big family. And, I even pick up the kids after school during the week when I'm home. It just means a lot to me, and if I ever get married and I have my own kids, great. But you know what? I travel the world like James Bond. I don't have to kill anybody. I have the love of a woman and the love of children in my life that I can watch grow, and my own close immediate family, my mom, my brother, and brothers rather. And it's like, I just feel very blessed, very lucky. It's a very different lifestyle. I have a lifestyle by design, so this works perfect for me. Oh, and of course, then I can sleep with whoever I want. So it's all good. Unless I'm in a relationship, committed.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Bruce, which, as you know, is the most valuable commodity. And thank you so much for doing the show. It's a burgeoning show, and we appreciate your support. And just everything you've done for the sport over the years. And you're an incredible guy, and I admire you and appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You can see the sun's coming down. I'm getting a lot of sun here. No, thanks, James. This is one of the reasons we've always stayed friends, because you're a quality guy, and I respect that. And you've always been honest with me, and I respect that. And you're a gentleman, and I respect that. We live in a world of decaying morality. So it takes people, you got to be your own role model for your sphere of influence, as I try to be for mine. So stand tall, uphold that, and let's not lose track of our values, because values are being lost track of.
Oh yeah, the breakdown of the family, and and being in LA. Like, I grew up in a small town outside of Toronto, and
go ahead, keep talking.
So very small town, and moving to LA was I was very naive when I first moved there, because I had these aspirations of doing film, and I had the balls and the desire to pursue my dream of filmmaking and stuff like that. But what I didn't prepare myself for was I had this, I was naive, and there's a lot of scummy people. I mean, there's scummy people in all areas of life. But what I found was difficult with LA is it's such a transient society that somebody can rip you off or screw you over, and like the next day they're, living somewhere else. So there's not really that community pressure. And I've seen it happen, like, just overall. And I mean, I'm 40, you're 60, and you've seen more of life than I have. But it's sad, because in my opinion, there used to be a lot more honor, within people. And
big time, big time. That's why you got to listen, it's buyer beware out there. Keep your head about you. Rudyard Kipling wrote a very famous poem called If, which I recommend everybody read, because to me it's all about life, and it's all about keeping your head about you and being the best you can be. And that's all we can do. We're all created equal in respect to the fact that we're born with lungs and brains and all. What separates us is either the families we're born into, or can we throw faster, jump higher, run, whatever the case might be. But the bottom line is we are all created equal. So when you pick a path, try to be the best you can be on that path, whether you make a ton of money or you just make good money, whether you meet a lot of people, you meet a few people. The bottom line is it's your path. You chose it. You set out to it. Learn it, be it, live it, and be the best you can be. That's all you can do in life. And if you stand out, or you get out unbelievably rich, well, great. Most of all, be happy with yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you're not happy within yourself, you will not be happy with anything in life, period. That old story where they say, if you don't love yourself, you can't love somebody else. It's actually kind of true. It's actually kind of true. I'm not talking about, oh, I love me. I'm not talking about that. Just appreciate who you are and be the best you can be, and then go out and try and exude it to others.
I don't let it affect my own moral code. So in other words, even if a girl or a business partner or whatever screws me over, I don't let that change how I treat other people, because I think, you live by your own code, and, like a samurai. And
oh, you hit it. Like a samurai. That's my thing. I live life like a samurai. No question about it.
Well, it's been a great time, Bruce. Great to see you again. Thanks, I'll post all the links below. Check them out. Check out brucebuffer.com, and definitely, get the $99 package. I think it's a great. It could be anything from a great gift that you want to give to somebody, or a gag, or whatever you want to do. I think it's a really cool thing that you're offering to people. And check out your book, because you got a lot of life experience and sage advice to share with people. So check it all out. And thanks again, Bruce. And cheers, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, James. Cheers to you too, my friend. And good luck, and best wishes to all your listeners. And good luck with the show, brother. Keep it going.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Have a great evening.
All right. Cheers, mate.